Rotimi Sankore. If you've been listening to the Friday edition, you will know that Countdown 2019 is where we feature all the big and significant issues on the road to the 2019 elections. Remember, you can follow the program on Twitter at Countdown 2019NG and myself, Rotimi Sankore, at Rotimi Sankore on Twitter, and also the station's Twitter handle at Nigeria Info FM. We have a special guest today, and she will be a regular guest. In the studio with us today is Mrs. Ayobe, who will be presenting the Ideas program. Ayo is a legal practitioner based in Lagos, and for many years she's been involved in civil society, both in Nigeria, where she was involved in the struggle to end military rule, and for human rights. She's done this in Nigeria and abroad. Welcome, Ayo.
Hello.
Okay, excellent. With us as well is Judges McNoble Senidowu, politics editor of Nigeria Info, and Judges will be updating us on what we'll be expecting from him in Oshun, and he's leaving tomorrow. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So, we'll start with Ayobe, and we'll be talking about the Ideas project. So, please tell us, what is the Ideas project and how did it come about?
Thank you, Rotimi. Well, the Ideas program is something that I've been asked to do by the CITAD, which is a Nigerian NGO, and they're being supported by the MacArthur Foundation to get Nigerians thinking in a more critical way about issues relating to integrity, their democracy, ethics, accountability. Obviously, that includes things like anti-corruption issues or corruption issues, corruption news. But the emphasis is on how we can build these things so that our democracy becomes a stronger issue.
And in Nigeria, we always talk about the fight against corruption or anti-corruption. Why is it Ideas rather than anti-corruption?
Well, I think, Rotimi, that I'm just a little bit tired of every time you say the word Nigeria, you're automatically expected to say the word corruption.
Fantastically or otherwise?
Yes, fantastically or otherwise. I mean, I opened my Twitter account this morning and I saw somebody was asking in relation to the money that had been voted for flood relief or emergency or disaster emergency relief in the areas of Nigeria that are under threat from flooding. And the question was, what percentage of this do you think will go to the actual victims, and what percentage will go to the officials, government chairs, and so on and so forth? And I thought, okay, but I can't imagine how often that question gets asked about other countries. We saw what happened in the United States with disaster relief. We saw what happened in countries like Italy with earthquake relief. And even the humanitarian agencies are always being asked to explain how much of the money that they collect is spent on administration and so on. But for us, it becomes a matter of corruption and so on. So it's not that I don't think we're going to deal with corruption issues, but I wouldn't want the title of this program to reinforce that link.
Okay. And specifically related to corruption in Nigerian politics, which is what we are focusing on, how will the program avoid ending up discussing what is described as theoretical irrelevancies?
Well, I don't think that integrity is an irrelevancy. I don't think that having ethics in government is an irrelevancy. And I don't think that the people calling for accountability is an irrelevancy. You'll be aware of organizations like Tracker asking various government bodies to account for the amount of money that they collect or that there's a claim to have spent, whether it's on constituency projects, whether it's on alleged road building and so on and so forth. Now that's about accountability, and what they're trying to do is to get the people involved in monitoring those claims, so that there will be accountability. Because if the people monitor or feedback into the feedback what is actually happening with regard to the money said to have been spent, then they will know whether they've got roads, whether they've got hospitals, whether they've got schools, whether teachers are being paid, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
So accountability is very important.
Okay, you mentioned Tracker. One of the interesting things about Tracker is that they are looking at accountability at different levels of government, not just the
Absolutely.
executive,
Absolutely.
the National Assembly as well, specifically the constituency projects that all the National Assembly members take home.
They don't take it home according to them. They only have it directed, and according to what many of them, the ones who have bothered to reply, they only have the money. They say put the money into X, Y, or Z. And one of the things that Tracker has pointed out is that, okay, you don't bother to find out whether the money has in fact gone into X, Y, or Z, even if we take you at face value. But the following year, you say put it into WST. What is that about? Without bothering to find out whether money that you directed last year is good, you're still putting more things into the budget. And that's just if we take it at face value, as I said, because many Nigerians are suspicious that the people who are called upon to execute the contracts are the ones who are nominated by the lawmakers, and who sometime later might be found making contributions to lawmakers' election funds or in other ways.
Okay, talking about elections, there's a lot of talk about party financing and whether it's being done the right way or not. Take, for instance, the issue of the cost of the nomination forms for the various parties, expression of interest and nomination forms. If we talk about the presidential level, the presidential tickets that people are aspiring for, in APC, it's 45 million naira, PDP, it's 12 million naira. This amount of money, is it appropriate, and what's the issue there?
Well, I think that I know that there's a sort of knee-jerk reaction of people saying, I don't have that kind of money, and therefore I'm being excluded from contesting. And I appreciate that very much, particularly when the sums are so huge as to that when people say that they have been assisted in the purchase of the forms, then the inevitable question is, in return for what? But I think that it's a good... There's one, as I said, the purpose of the Ideas program is for us to look at things critically rather than just with a knee-jerk approach. And for me, I would say that, in the first place, you should expect a political party to make money while the while the sun is shining. If they think that they're a hot ticket, they want to raise money, and so you're going to find that a party that everybody thinks, or that thinks it's going to win, is going to set itself a high price. Now that could end up being counterproductive. Somebody may struggle and find his 45 million or whatever other money he needs or she needs to contest at different levels, and they may find that the political momentum is just drained away from their party, and some of the things that could cause it to drain away are that very perception that people who have invested that money in getting elected, maybe we think that they should recoup their money somewhere else, not from being in charge of our government. So it could be counterproductive. Then you also, but as I said, I think that one of the things that we would like to suggest to voters is that, is there an empirical basis for making this determination? For example, if I'm a young person and they tell me that to contest for the House of Assembly of Reps, I don't know what, let's say it's 12 million.
Well, it's 800,000.
800,000. I don't have 800,000. And I think that we're kind of approaching it in a wrong way, because the idea that if you are running for election in a political contest, that you have to bring money out of your own pocket, then what is the what is the guarantee for the political party that fields you that you actually have any real appeal to anybody?
So you can
Even
raise the money
within your
from
own
supporters.
party, you should be able to raise the money from supporters, but the level at which, I mean, if I'm a young person of maybe 25 and I want to run for the State House of Assembly, maybe my friends will say we can contribute 5,000 naira for your, and
Each.
yes, and you can get a reasonable number of people. They may not be my age, there may be different people who believe in me, but it's a reasonable, it's a base, against that basis that you say, now if I can get 50 people like that, I should be good enough to run for office. But I don't think that there's any empirical or objective assessment of parties when they fix these amounts. I think they just look at what will the market bear, and of course they want to, in some ways, they want to drive off some contestants. But as I said, it could end up being a counterproductive, and you fight your way to the top of the greasy pole and emerge as the candidate amongst so many aspirants, only to find that you lose the election.
The point you are making, if you look at the elections in the UK, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
where a party that does not score a certain percentage loses what is described as their deposit.
Yes.
I mean, that's an
Effectively.
example.
Yeah, yes.
So there has to be, the party has to contribute something.
Yes.
And then if they don't win a certain percentage, then they lose.
Well, I mean, the fact is that an aspirant has to come with a certain amount of realistic expectation. And as I said, of course, it means that if you are just one rich person, you can bring the money out of your pocket. But the party itself might also look and say, is this the kind of person, somebody who is just buying his or her way into
Okay, so it's not that
context?
there's something wrong with the concept. It's the amount.
It's the amount.
It's the amount.
Yes.
So 45 million is certainly too high.
Oh, it seems to me to be very much too high. But then, as I said, it's a seller's market, and although I must confess that in the case of the APC, it seemed particularly strange, since almost everybody knows that there's really only one serious candidate who's likely to emerge as the, or aspirant rather, who's likely to emerge as the candidate.
As the candidate.
So maybe it's a way of trying to dissuade others from wasting their time. But one would have thought that there's a limit. Parties definitely have to raise money for, I mean, I know of one party which says you buy the form with 500, or you express your interest with 500,000 naira. But when you return it, you must return it with an additional 4.5 million, so that we know that you are a serious person and that you have some support somewhere.
Okay. Talking about incumbency, the issue of advantage of incumbency and politics and corruption in the Nigerian political system. How will the Ideas project address this?
Well, I think that it's been very interesting in this current cycle of elections, because, as you know, the incumbent government at the federal level has had what is called its social inclusion policy, and that's been going on, school feeding, all sorts of things. But when the trader money was launched,
The 10,000.
you start with 10,000, and and then it was one of the places where it was launched
Was
in Osun State, where there's going to be an election, or at the time when it was launched, the election was about 2 or 3 weeks away. Now, of course, the government said, "Oh, it's just happened to be on our itinerary. There's nothing special about that." But I think that it's one of the examples in which, in a way, you could say that our politics is becoming a little bit more sophisticated. Definitely, the one is entitled to say there's something very fishy about launching this here. It may not be direct vote buying, but it is certainly a way of influencing the election.